You're listening to Pipebomb Radio with your host, the founder, Felix Olmedo,
the tower of power, too sweet to be sour,
and the Godfather, Nate Milton.
Godfather's in the house.
You're welcome.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
Welcome, everybody, to Pipebomb Radio tonight. As we host another off-the-cuff episode, we've got a few surprises. The first one, obviously, was a new intro. Would love to hear what you guys think about it. We were kind of definitely trying to change things up since we lost Austin. We are looking to obviously promote myself and Nate. But as far as tonight's show goes, we have some surprises in store. Number one being we have a few guest co-hosts joining us tonight as we discuss WWE Payback. We talk about the aftermath on Monday Night Raw. And, well, we might even touch on TNA a little bit because I know that's Nate's forte. He loves himself some TNA, and I mean the wrestling company. But that being said, one of our guest co-hosts is patiently waiting, so we will go ahead and bring him on. He's actually got a background in podcasting, working for the VOC Nation, and I'm drawing a blank on the other one. I'm sorry. I will get him to fill us in on the second one. I forget. AngryMarks. There we go. AngryMarks.com, if I'm not mistaken. His name is Jordan Garber, so we will go ahead and bring him on here and take it away. Jordan, how you doing, pal?
I am doing great, and it is great to be here on Pipebomb Radio to debut for you guys. I am really excited to be a part of this. Great to meet new people, new fans listening. I'm just excited to be a part of this. I am doing great. How about you?
Doing exceptionally well. Excitingly well. That's a good word, too. Exceptionally well. Enjoyed the weekend. Looking forward to the week. Life is good. Life is good. I can't complain because when you have nothing to complain about, that's when life is really good. And I don't have nothing to complain about. So, moving forward, I got to ask, first off, I mean, what got you interested in doing some podcasting, man? I mean, what drew you into doing stuff like that?
I remember it was at my first show, and that was probably around, I kind of was a late bloomer when it came to wrestling. I was probably 12 or 13, and I found my first show in a town called Selkirk, Manitoba, and it was called Steeltown Pro Wrestling, and the event was called Fight for the Red. I still remember it. So after that, I started to make connections. After a year or two, I started to make connections. A year after that, I did my first email interview. And then I think I took some time off of wrestling after I did that. And then back in 2012, I did interviews again. And then that's when I skyrocketed and got all these awesome opportunities that I've received throughout the years. So, it's pretty much how it started. I was young. I was probably 12 or 13. I took a break from it. And then I got back into it in 2012. And now I'm really enjoying it. It's a good ride.
Yeah, and you worked with VOC Nation, definitely a very well-known wrestling podcast. And tell us a little bit about AngryMarks. What are they about? I mean, how did that get started for you? And who are some of the names that you guys have got to work with and bring on your show, or the shows that you guys have had?
I was working for Bruce Hart at the time. I was working for Hart Brothers University. And I did a show with them, and I didn't want to. Some stuff went down. I didn't want to be with them anymore. At the time, I was just like, I want to try something new, something fresh. And I got an email from one of the producers of AngryMarks, and they wanted me to be a co-host on their new SmackDown Rundown show with Nikolai, who works there as well. So I debuted for AngryMarks on June 29th, 2014. So it's almost been my 1-year anniversary working for them. But AngryMarks has been really cool. AngryMarks has been really good to me. And AngryMarks has been like the website where I've had so many big breaks and so many great opportunities. Guests include on AngryMarks, including JGW on AngryMarks.com, Scott Steiner. We've interviewed Nigel McGuinness on Thursday Night AMP. I've interviewed Kazarian, AJ Styles, all those big names. This Thursday we're interviewing Jamin Olivencia, who's with Global Force Wrestling right now. So that's our next show with AngryMarks. Nice. So AngryMarks I cannot complain. They have been really, really good to me, and I'm really excited to keep working with them. Like, they've gave me a lot of great opportunities, and they've helped me through a lot.
And working with the infamous Hart family, I mean, that had to be an intimidating experience, or was it? I mean, obviously, maybe starting off, I mean, the name is known throughout the. Well, let's just put it this way: if you don't know the Hart family, you must have been hidden under a rock, or you don't live on this planet. But getting to work with Bruce Hart, I can't imagine how much fun that was.
Working with Bruce Hart, well, I first started, I was really marking out at first. Like, I was like, oh, cool, I'm working with the Hart family. How that happened was I did a show in 2013 called Wrestling Radio Ultimate. I was working with a guy named Siki, and we interviewed a guy named Marvelous Mike Reed. So after we interviewed Mike Reed, he said, you want to interview Bruce Hart. So he gave me the connection to Richie Acevedo. Then he gave me the connection to Bob Johnson, who is the producer of HBU and is a big part of the school, Harper University. And Bob Johnson set me up with an interview with Bruce Hart. Bruce liked what I got. After that, I think I was talking on the phone with Bob Johnson for 2 or 3 weeks. He said to me, we got something big here, Jordan. And I said, what do you mean? He said, we're going to have this new radio show that's going to change internet wrestling. It's going to change wrestling on the internet. It's going to change wrestling podcasts. So I did that, and we launched Heartbeat Radio, and that was really cool. At first it was awesome, but then they had an American affiliate called Pro Wrestling Powerhouse. So Pro Wrestling Powerhouse is interviewing Ric Flair, Terry Funk, all these big names, but I'm stuck with the smaller names. So I'm like, well, I want to have a chance to interview these guys. I think I haven't earned it, but I want to have a shot. I want to give me a go. But they just kept on giving me the smaller name guests. But I've worked with Randy Orton's dad and all that. But if there's one regret with them is I wish my attitude was better when I was working with them, because like I could have gone so far with them, and it's too bad that didn't go. It went really well, but it was a good stint. It was a good run. I really enjoyed working for them. But yeah, it was a great opportunity to work for Bruce Hart. It was really awesome. Working with some big names, and that's always great. And it's just another thing to add to my resume. So it's really cool.
And I just want to introduce you, Jordan, to my co-host and partner in crime, as he like to call himself, the Godfather of radio, Mr. Nate Milton. Nate, what's up, buddy?
What is going on, Brother Felix? How you doing, Jordan?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am great, man. I just, running a little bit late. I was trying to bring in another guest for this great off-the-cuff show, but that fell through. But I think the three of us are going to have a good time tonight. And just listening to what you said right there, I would like to echo those sentiments, especially to the listeners. And I think Felix can attest to this, that a lot of times in life, your attitude determines your altitude. And a lot of times it's not so much what you know, but the way you go about things. So, I'm glad you learned that lesson, my young friend, and hopefully we can have a good time here tonight.
I'm really excited to be a part of this show tonight. I'm glad I got to spread the word out of Jordan Garber, and you guys reached it, and I got a chance to do the show with you guys tonight. I'm really looking forward to what's ahead.
Sounds like a plan. We were just getting to know Jordan a little bit before we continue. We can go ahead and just talk a little bit about, obviously Nate and I, we were talking about what was going to happen at Payback, what we would have liked to have seen, what we heard what was going to happen, and what generally just happened. For those who didn't watch it on the WWE Network or any other way to watch it, obviously you missed out on a great show. The crowd was really into it. The matches, the crowd was really on fire. I was enjoying the crowd's reaction because when the crowd's really into it, I don't know. You feel like you're missing. You're watching something special. At least that's my take on it. And I wanted to get both your guys' opinions. In your opinion, as far as the show goes, I'm going to say I'm hoping that you've seen it. But if you haven't, we can go around it. But what was your favorite match or match that you guys felt that stood out from the show?
Personally, I like John Cena and Rusev. I thought it was a good match. It was an I Quit match, the longest match of the night. I just thought, it was extremely entertaining, and the finish was great. There's tons of honorable mentions and other standouts, but I think that match pretty much took the cake for the pay-per-view.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was a good match. You mentioned the crowd, Felix, and I think not only did we have a good crowd at Payback in Baltimore, but there was also a pretty good crowd at Richmond on Raw the following night. So hopefully the WWE will come back to the Mid-Atlantic more often, because I do think that this is a wrestling base that needs more of this type of stuff. I live in Virginia, so, it's like we'll get the odd Raw. Matter of fact, SmackDown took place in Norfolk here tonight. So we'll get the odd show every now and then, but I do think this area deserves a little bit more. In terms of matches that I liked, Cena and Rusev, it was pretty good. I don't think it was the best of their matches, but it was solid. I really liked the tag match. I thought the tag match could have gone for another 3 or 4 minutes, with the New Day and Kid and Cesaro, because I think they have great chemistry together. And the main event, it wasn't the best main event I've ever seen, but as 4-ways go, it was pretty solid.
That is true. I mean, people marked out a little bit with the brief Shield reunion, if it was, on Randy Orton, and most felt that was going to happen, that there was going to be some kind of reunion of sorts. As the three of them were in a match, how would that not have happened? And as far as the 2 out of 3 falls, I really feel that those matches are so rare and not around as much as they need to be that sometimes they get rushed, because those matches can take a long time. If you think about it, a lot of 2 out of 3 falls matches from the past, they were long matches. But this one, I mean, it was a good match. It just felt rushed after the second fall happened, or even the first fall for that matter. It just kind of went through so fast. It just didn't seem like a real credible 2 out of 3 falls match. Now, I like the idea that they're going to push this into the Elimination Chamber, because it's never been done. But we'll get to that in a little bit. As far as the match that stood out to me, between those two are great choices. I don't think you can really argue that those two may have been the match of the night, with the exception of maybe I don't know. I've really been enjoying the work of Dolph Ziggler and with Sheamus. Their feud has gotten personal. It's just different. Let's just put it that way. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's done by now. But yeah, those two were definitely the match of the night. Moving it over to Raw, like you were saying, in Richmond, the return of Stephanie and the Authority and then paying tribute to the Love Fest was nauseating, but it was interesting because I like the idea of them giving the opportunity now to Dean Ambrose. Of all people, that I didn't see it coming, but you know what? I like it. I like it because they're shaking things up a little bit. He's kind of I don't want to say unbalanced. Let's just say lunatic fringe. Pretty much sums it up. His character is definitely, it fits. Let's just say that. If they're going to have their match at Elimination Chamber, and yeah, I think that works. I like the other idea of what happened on Raw, and I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on this, is the arrival of Kevin Owens. That one blew me away a little bit. I didn't see that coming. What did you guys think about that?
I was really shocked to see Kevin Owens debut, because I didn't hear much about it on the internet. Either that or I didn't, pay attention much to the wrestling media the past week or so. But to see Kevin Owens, good for him, because he was in Ring of Honor, and like he said in the promo, he's been doing this for 15 years, so it must feel good to debut on Raw after being on the Independents for 15 years. Good for him. I'm really happy for him. He's deserved it. By far, he deserves it. And it's finally good to see that he made it.
Absolutely. What about you, Nate? What you think?
I agree. I think this is probably one of the best NXT debuts since maybe Bray Wyatt and The Shield. Ever since those groups came in, I'd say this is probably the best handled of the NXT debuts. I really liked, Owens' promo. I love that he stepped on the U.S. title as he elevated the NXT title. And I think that this is going to be a really great spot for him at the Elimination Chamber. I don't think he's going to beat Cena, but I do think that, this is what the Cena U.S. title run has been all about. And this is why I've enjoyed it so much, because he's giving back to the young guys and giving back to the mid-carders. And I think that this is a way to elevate Kevin Owens. Even if he loses to Cena, I think it's a great way to position him as somebody that we should take seriously.
And the fact that they're going to face at we're going to have John Cena versus Kevin Owens at Elimination Chamber. I like the idea. I do, because it's something different. And he's working with the younger guys. And even though Owens is not necessarily a rookie, neither was Sami Zayn for that matter, they're given these opportunities, and I like that they're getting in there to mix it up with the guys that have been on the roster a long period of time. And it kind of pulls Cena away from the world title picture, because I know people are sick to death of him being world champion, but yet they're giving him the chance to make the U.S. title somewhat credible. And giving them this U.S. title, I guess, open challenge each week has definitely been interesting. It's definitely been one of the highlights of the show each week, because you wonder who's going to step it up, who's going to come in, who's going to take the title from him, who's going to be the next challenger for that matter, and will the U.S. title be up at Elimination Chamber. Now, we've seen the split of Lana and Rusev. Now, there obviously has been information going around saying that they're trying to maybe make Lana the new head diva, the diva of the diva division, the face, I guess you could call her, or the body, however you want to look at her, which I'm pretty sure everybody wants to look at her. But what do you guys think about this new change? It looks like Rusev is gonna. I just don't want to see him get pushed down into mid card, because he's been in the level where he's been in the main event level. So it's like, okay, so now that he doesn't have Lana, the Cena thing is over. What's left? What's left for the two of them, really?
Well, with Lana, it's kind of difficult, because they're going to have to convert her to a CJ Perry gimmick, because Rusev's the only Russian guy on the roster, and it only makes she just can't manage some random heel on the roster with her Russian gimmick. I think something's going to be changing with Lana, and I think maybe she'll still be Russian. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, but it's going to be really cool. It's going to be unpredictable. But I've heard, isn't it true that she kissed Dolph Ziggler on Raw after she slapped Rusev? Am I correct?
Yes.
She did kiss Dolph Ziggler, so I think what she's going to do is, it's going to sound weird, but she's probably going to change her voice back to her original voice, and she'll be a face, and she'll be working with CJ Perry with Dolph Ziggler. That's something I could picture. Or maybe she'll just be Lana, but she'll be a face. But it's kind of, there's not much you can do with her, because she had this awesome gimmick, and now they changed it with Rusev turning on her. So it's going to be really interesting to see what's happening with Lana.
I always seen them as the Boris and Natasha of professional wrestling, but I don't know. Maybe that's just kind of playing it a little too much. But what do you think, Nate? Didn't you ever get that feeling of a Boris and Natasha from the Rocky and Bullwinkle show?
Yeah,
I'm aging myself. I'm aging myself. Yeah. I'm going to stop now.
Like, they were perfect 80s Russian stereotypical heels, and it worked. And now I don't know what her shelf life is outside of this gimmick, because, obviously, they've got big plans for her, and we know Vince loves his pretty blonde girls. But, she can talk. The accent thing is going to be interesting, how they maneuver that. All of a sudden she just drops her accent one week. But the other thing is, if they want her to be the face of this Divas division, and, as far as I've seen, she's not a wrestler. She's a personality. She's a great manager of valet, but the WWE really doesn't do that these days. So I know they're trying to pair her with Dolph. I don't think Dolph needs a manager at this point. I think it hinders him, because he's somebody that can talk on his own. So I don't know where that's going to go. But in terms of Rusev, I think Rusev can bounce back. I think in the Elimination Chamber, I see him winning the IC title, and I see some great matches, with him and some guys in there. He'll still be in the mid card, but I think he'll be at the top of the mid card with that IC belt.
Fast fact: okay. You guys know in real life Rusev is actually dating Lana?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we've seen. I see pictures of him on Instagram quite a bit. So that made that still pretty known, unless that's changed.
Real uncomfortable. Like the segment on Raw just was really uncomfortable, because I'm like, Rusev, you just gonna let this man kiss your woman on national TV? I couldn't do it. You're like, he's a better man than me, Brother Felix.
I don't know, because if I had a woman that fine, I don't think I could. Yeah, I could live I couldn't live with myself. I would be like, see, I'm already stepping over my words, just getting all fluttered about it. Hello. But that whole situation, I have to agree with Jordan as far as the whole changing her up. If they're going to go ahead and push her to be the next diva, and I'm wondering what they're going to do with Rusev. I'm curious to see where they'll go from here. If there'll be a battle between Rusev and Dolph, because I believe both of them are in the Elimination Chamber for the IC belts. So that should play out pretty interesting. And as far as the whole deal with Seth Rollins as champion, well, let me say we had a authority lover, no name mentioned, that left us recently, and as Seth Rollins as a champion, I like it because he's playing the quintessential heel, where he thinks he's big and tough, but he's got his back up to shut you up if you got any questions. No question, his in-ring work is just off the charts. He's great in the ring. What do you guys think of his reign so far as champion? I know we still have our doubters thinking that he won't make it to SummerSlam as champion, that Brock will return and just totally tear him limb from limb, God willing. Curious to hear what you guys think about Seth Rollins as the champion thus far.
I personally think that Seth Rollins is a good champion. It's well-deserved. I think the reign's cool. I think he's getting a lot of heat during that reign, which is awesome. I have a feeling that Brock Lesnar is going to return, but he is not going to win back the championship. They're doing this to push Seth Rollins and make him a huge star. I have a feeling that Seth Rollins is going to have that championship belt for quite a long time, maybe even, 7 months or to a year. That's honestly my prediction. Seth Rollins is a good champion. I don't think they need the title to change anytime soon. I think Seth Rollins is a good champion right now, and he gets a lot of heat as champion. He's doing his job.
Okay. What about you, Nate? What you think, man?
I think he's been doing a solid job. It hadn't been the best title run, but it's been good for what it's been. I think he plays his character well. I love that, they're kind of making him into Triple H Jr. now. So,
it does seem that way.
Here's the thing, I think the real money is not in this Seth Rollins heel character. I think the real money is maybe a year from now when Seth Rollins looks at Triple H and he's like, I'm not your son, I'm not your puppet, I'm my own damn man, and Seth Rollins does this big babyface turn, and then I think that's the real money in Seth Rollins. But in terms of
kind of a teacher versus student thing, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I think that'll work. But in terms of how long Seth is going to hold the title, I don't know, man. Because there's a part of me that thinks this is all a setup for Brock at SummerSlam. But there's also a part of me that thinks Seth could hold this title for 6 more months. There's also a part of me that thinks he could lose to Ambrose at Elimination Chamber only to win Money in the Bank, and then much like Edge, go in and get his title back. So there's a lot of things they can do with Rollins. But I do think that he's doing a good job with what they've been giving him so far.
Interesting look at it, no doubt. And the question I got to pose to you guys, which was talked about on Raw, not last night, but more like a week ago. He's had a Cinderella story. He's not a rookie, but he's been around and done this. But it seems he could never catch a break. When he caught a break, something came up and ruined it. Now I got to ask: is this the end for Daniel Bryan? Obviously, he will be a part of Tough Enough when it comes out in June next month. But his in-ring career, is it over? Does it stand a chance? I mean, every time he's given a break, something happens. Do they want to take a risk with him anymore is the question. Jordan, what do you think, man?
It's something where I hope that it doesn't affect him for the rest of his career. The man's only 33 years old. If he wouldn't have had these injuries, he would have so many years left ahead of him. This guy's done it all. He's done it all in the WWE. He's done it all on the Indies. He's pretty much done it all for everything, and he's only 33. The sky's the limit for this guy. As for this injuries, I really don't hope they affect him. But like you say, each major injury you get, you're gonna get affected even more, and it's gonna even put more years off your career. Hopefully, we'll just see what happens as time comes. But I think after this injury, he's going to give it another go. And after that next chance that he has after this injury that he's recovering from, and when he returns, that's the real test. That's when we're going to see, is Daniel Bryan okay? Can this guy still go? Can this guy still compete at the top level? Hopefully he can, because I love this guy. This guy's great, and he's done everything in the business, and he deserves everything that he has accomplished.
Okay. And what about you, Nate? What you think about this whole situation with Daniel? Does the old boy got a chance?
I hate to be the Debbie Downer in this particular segment, but I do think we've seen the last of Daniel Bryan as main eventer. Like, that's done. Like, the WWE even told us that when instead of, inserting him into WrestleMania or into another title picture, they put him down to the IC title because they're like, okay, he can be safe here and this and that. But it's their own fault because they rushed him back. There was no reason to rush Daniel Bryan back, and I think that, man, it's just unfortunate because the guy is so good in the ring, so good on the mic. He's one of the few guys that has a connection to people outside of the WWE. If you look at all these sports arenas, with Michigan when they won when they went to the Final Four a couple years ago, they had the fans doing the yes chant. The Seahawks, when they made their run to the Super Bowl, the fans were doing the yes chant. So Daniel Bryan is somebody that resonates with people outside of wrestling. But unfortunately, I think now he's going to be like a special attraction at 33. He's going to be like The Undertaker. He's going to give you 1 or 2 matches a year, but that's going to be it because, unfortunately, I don't think that his body is going to be able to take the wear and tear of a regular WWE schedule anymore.
And he's done it all for a long time. He's done this since 1999. So, he's already had so much wear and tear on him. So, I just hopefully it all goes well with him because, it would be a shame to the wrestling world and all the wrestling fans around the world to lose a great competitor like Daniel Bryan.
Well, the thing is, I think even if he doesn't wrestle again, at least, not to the level that we see him, he's got a job for life with them, or at least he should. I could easily see Daniel Bryan being, a commentator, or Daniel Bryan continuing with the Tough Enough training thing, or maybe one day when the Authority finally gets kicked out and Raw needs a new general manager, they bring in the GOAT.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they made that Hogan.
He doesn't have to worry about anything financially. This guy has a job for life. If he is not wrestling, he'll probably have another role with the company. He's already doing the Tough Enough thing, so at least we'll still see him involved in wrestling somewhat. So that's still a good thing.
Interesting. Definitely got some opinions there, and what we would like to see happen, and hope they keep him somewhat relevant in the for WWE. But
how great would it be, Felix? If you look at all their history, how great would it be after all that they've been through if we turn on the Raw one night a year or so from now and your 2 commentators are Michael Cole and Daniel Bryan?
Knowing the history between those two, that would be interesting.
It could be very possible, and remember, that would be quite a mixed duo because Michael Cole and Daniel Bryan once had a feud. Can you picture that? Yeah. That would be kind of cool.
No doubt about it. But kind of steering away from WWE for just a moment, I got to ask your opinion because I said I was going to mention it, Nate, and you've been watching it, and I want to get your opinions. And Jordan, I want you to chime in too if you've been following it. I have not, but I definitely want to get my fix on what's going on in the world of Impact Wrestling.
Well,
man. Go ahead, Jordan.
Impact Wrestling is when people ask me that question, there's been so many wrestling fans and obviously people who are involved in the wrestling media side like yourselves and myself. I always ask about Impact Wrestling, and the first thing I say is that it's not what it used to be. It is not what it used to be at all. Watch Impact Wrestling in 2007 or 2009, most preferably 2007, and look at it now. It is not even close to what it was, and that's not a good thing. I know they have a TV deal, like Canadians like myself can watch it on the Fight Network, but what is everyone really doing on a Friday night? They're probably partying or going to the bar. They're not watching Impact Wrestling. Their viewership has went down. Hopefully things continue, like something positive happens with them. But I'll still watch the product, but I'll say pretty much it's not what it used to be at all.
Okay. Now, you know what? And most people would want to blame the fact that it was Hogan and Bischoff that were running things, which they really didn't have as much power as most people thought. But Nate, I know you talk about it on your show as well. What's going on? Where do you see is going on with the issue? Because you were telling me a little bit about some of the ongoing issues as far as with the knockouts and the dollhouse and the EC3, which is he's an incredible character. He does it extremely well. But running for president, something's wrong here. Is he Mr. Bob Backlund? Come on, is he going to put you in the chicken wing if you don't vote for him? What the hell? I mean, I'm sorry. No. They were doing good with him, with being the nephew of Dixie, and it kind of got stale. He beat Sting, he beat Angle, he beat Bully Ray. You know, he was going places. This dude should have been world champion already. What am I missing?
Oh, yeah.
Well, a couple things. First of all, to Jordan's point about our Canadian brothers and sisters, and also our American brothers and sisters that watch Impact on Destination America, they've changed nights. Like, that's been kind of the bigger story, but even more so than what's been on TV, what's been going on behind the scenes. Because when TNA initially came to Destination America, they had 3 shows on the schedule. 2 of those shows have been canceled, so the only show that remains is Impact Wrestling. And Impact was airing on Fridays, but in a couple weeks it's going to be moving to Wednesday nights. So we'll see how that does in terms of the ratings. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference, but, Wednesday is a better night for wrestling than Fridays. But in terms of what's on the TV, Jordan is right to say that this is not what it was back in, 05, 06, 07. But the good point is it's also not what it was in 2010, 2011, 2012, when you were caught up in the Hogan-Bischoff stuff, when you were caught up in Aces and Eights, when you had some of the worst stuff that TNA has ever produced. Now at least they're to a point where we've got some good characters on screen like Ethan Carter, MVP. They've got some good storylines. One of the big feuds they've got right now is the Wolves, Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards versus Bobby Roode and Austin Aries. They're doing a best of 5 for the tag titles, which can't be anything other than good. So I'm not going to say that TNA is in a best spot. There's always the chance that they could go out of business any day now, and people have been saying they could go out of business for years now. But I would say it's a better show. That if you stopped watching in 2010 or 2011, TNA is a much better show right now than the show that you left. So Ethan Carter and Kurt Angle is kind of the program that they're building towards for Slammiversary, which is their first real pay-per-view in months, maybe even in a year. So I'm interested to see what they can do to kind of turn things around on this new channel and with this new roster.
Okay. And where we see the struggles of TNA wrestling, we see on the horizon something that's been building for quite some time, that being Global Force Wrestling, led by the Jarretts, Jeff and Karen. And they started to build up a really impressive roster, bringing in a legend. Unfortunately, they had to take him off, but we won't talk too much about that. But the new roster, the new company coming up on the horizon, is there hope? Do you see? Because the Jarretts, they have a history in running companies. They have a history in building up a great roster of talent. They have an eye for talent. Now, with Jeff and his new company coming up and their debut coming up next month, what do you guys foresee for the future for Global Force Wrestling?
You guys got to think of it this way. Jeff Jarrett created TNA. That was Jeff Jarrett's empire. So we have Impact Wrestling right now, and we have Global Force Wrestling. Now, Global Force Wrestling is a new promotion, but it's ran by Jeff Jarrett, and he has this huge vision. This could be the next big thing in professional wrestling. A lot of people are saying negative things about it, but if Jeff Jarrett created TNA, and now that he's still a minority shareholder, but if he's not with TNA full-time right now, and he's angry, and he's creating Global Force Wrestling, this thing could be something big. Now, I look at their roster, and they got pretty much they're all just top indie guys, which is cool. I think something could be good with this. I think Global Force Wrestling has the potential, and I have a feeling a year from now, or maybe 6 months to a year, I'm going to say a crazy prediction, but in 6 months to a year, I think these guys at Global Force Wrestling will be going head-to-head with Impact Wrestling. I think this could be a big thing in wrestling, Global Force Wrestling. It has, for one, it has a lot of media attention, and for two, if it follows up with its vision, with the media attention, it's going to be big. That's my take on it.
Okay. Interesting. What about you, Nate? What you think, man?
Yeah, I think Global Force has a lot of potential. You know, you could say a lot of things about Jeff Jarrett and the way that he booked himself when he was running TNA. You know, I thought he put himself in the top spot way too often, and it held other people down that should have been getting those opportunities. But the one thing you could never say about TNA during Jarrett's run was that it was a company that was losing money, which we've seen since he left. And so I think that, you know, Jarrett he's got some good names on the roster already, you know, the Young Bucks, Chris Sabin, Seiya Sanada. You know, he's in talks with Bill Goldberg apparently, which would be amazing, just to see Goldberg back on national television. And he's working with Bischoff. And a lot of people are kind of weary about Eric Bischoff, but I think if you just let Bischoff do television production, he's great. The problem with Bischoff becomes when you allow him to dictate the storylines, because all he knows is those WCW storylines that are old, that are not going to work anymore. But, man, I think that not only if Global Force Wrestling not only gets their stuff in order, they will not only challenge TNA, but they will also challenge ROH and Lucha Underground, because right now it's like almost like a fatal four-way to see who can claim that number 2 spot that TNA had a firm grip on for so long.
Think about
That's a good point.
I'm on GlobalForceWrestling.com, and I'm looking at their roster, and we got Chris Masters, Jim Cornette, Justin Gabriel, who has recently released, Jeff Jarrett, Doc Gallows, that's a decent name. Going down the list here, we have Brodus Clay, we have David Hart Smith, who's now Davey Boy Smith Jr., we have Shelton Benjamin, Scott Steiner's on this roster. There's a ton of underrated independent talent on here. I'm not going to go through it all because I'm not going to go through everything, but we also have Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Scott Steiner mixed with all of these independent stars. The potential is there, but can these former big names, the Scott Steiners, the Hacksaw Jim Duggans, can they live up to their age and still perform at a good level that they did before? If they can, we got a good roster here, and it's easier said than done. But looking at this roster, all it pretty much is standout independent talent mixed in with big former big names in WWE. That's a good thing.
Okay. Yeah, because at this point, if you're going to go and try to go head-to-head with the WWE monster, you better pack a lunch, because right now they've held that top spot for a while, and unless you got as I think Nate and I have talked about this, unless you got the financial backing of a Ted Turner, of a Rupert Murdoch, of a big billionaire, that money is not an issue, then you could stand a chance. However, things are not like they were in the 1990s. Oh, those are some good old days, weren't they, Nate?
Yeah.
Things are a lot different now. So repeating what Nate was saying about Bischoff, he's got the mind for it. Oh, he does. He's got the creativity. He tried to reiterate a lot of what happened in WCW, but you can't take away the man's genius. And the same can be said with Paul Heyman, but that's another story. As far as Global Force Wrestling, Jeff Jarrett has it in him to lead this company to dominate TNA wrestling, because if they're good, TNA is hanging on by a thread with Destination America. Where are they going to be now? The Internet Wrestling show like Ring of Honor? I mean, I'm not knocking Ring of Honor. They've got phenomenal freaking talent and just a great show overall. What's that?
Sorry to interrupt, but this roster of Global Force Wrestling is extremely comparable to TNA's roster right now. Yep. Extremely comparable. And that should scare TNA.
Well, I would say the one thing that they have that not only should scare TNA, but also ROH, Lucha Underground, anybody, is they have possibly the one guy under contract or on their roster that actually resonates to sports fans outside of wrestling or casual fans outside of wrestling, and that's Chael Sonnen, former UFC fighter who is one of the commentators. And I think if you've heard Chael Sonnen cut a promo in the Octagon, like, this is a guy that I think is he was born for professional wrestling. So I think having a guy like Chael Sonnen attached to this project, it can only help them get eyes from, places like Fox Sports or ESPN, where a company like TNA or ROH, they'd have trouble getting onto some of those sports outlets.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm gonna play it, change this up a little bit. I want to, myself and Nate, I'm gonna put you and myself together here. We're gonna test Jordan here, our young co-host, and talk about more of his knowledge and so forth. I'm gonna put you on the spot, man. I gotta ask, if in your entire time as a wrestling fan, give me three moments in your opinion that stood out to you as some of the three of the biggest reasons you became a wrestling fan, whether it be a superstar, whether it be a moment. I would love to hear what you think about it, man, because I know there were just so many. I don't know if three is a good enough number.
Are you talking about, like, actual matches and actual moments, or just, like, things about wrestling that made me become a fan and an interviewer?
Well, you can use, if it was because of the Hulkster, or if it was because a match between Ricky and Randy at WrestleMania 3, or was it because of Steve Austin in the beer truck dousing the McMahon, the corporation in 98, I believe it was, 98, 99, things like that.
To me, the year I remember as the most memorable in wrestling as me being a fan before I actually got majorly involved in the business on the media side was 2007, and I remember WrestleMania 23. Now, watching these 2007 matches, I don't know, everyone has a year of wrestling, and I remember always watching it in 2007, and I remember that. That was a good moment, watching WrestleMania 23. A lot of independent wrestling, even if I go to an independent wrestling show and I see someone off a ladder go through a table, that's cool. If I hear even hearing an entrance theme and being in the locker room with the boys and hearing their theme play and seeing them pumped up and them going through that curtain is really inspiring as well. But there's just so many moments that you'll see on the mainstream wrestling media with WWE and TNA. There's too many to count. I remember AJ Styles winning the world title. That was a cool moment. I think that was he was facing Rob Van Dam and Sting at the time. That was a cool moment too. I watched a bunch of old wrestling tapes too, a bunch of old Hulk Hogan matches, and all of those are really inspiring. It's pretty much, there's a lot of moments. There's just too many to tell, pretty much.
That's true. Nate, do you got any questions for Jordan you want to ask?
Yeah, I think my first question would be, in terms of who would be your dream subject to have an interview with, a conversation with, and why?
Wow.
Good question.
That's you guys should give me a good, 20 seconds to think about that. That's a tough one. That is actually a tough one. I've interviewed a lot of names, and I'm really grateful for all the experiences that I've had, not just in wrestling, but in my life. And if I think of one interview it'd probably be Hulk Hogan. It's pretty much someone who'd done it all in wrestling. Because John Cena, Hulk Hogan, those guys, and actually Bruno Sammartino. Because if I interview Hulk Hogan or Bruno, then you pretty much made it. You pretty much took the bait. You pretty much accomplished what your goals were in wrestling media, to interview these legends. Pretty much Hulk Hogan, Bruno Sammartino, or any WWE Hall of Famer.
Okay. And now I'm going to pose a question to the two of you. I'd like to shake things up a little bit. WrestleMania 32 is going to be in Dallas. Now, Vince McMahon calls you up on the phone and says, look, I need my top 3 matches, my top 3 main events for next year's WrestleMania locked in now. I also need some Hall of Famers, some ideas for Hall of Famers who should be inducted in Dallas. And Nate, I know you're salivating at the chance to answer this one because you've been a fan of World Class for years and years and years and years. I'm going to pose a question to both of you. As far as the top 3 main event matches for WrestleMania next year and the Hall of Fame, would love to hear, in your opinions, who would be the lock-in for the main event and the Hall of Fame. Whoever wants to go first, please fire away.
Main event at WrestleMania 32. It's going to be... I have a crazy prediction. I think it's going to be Seth Rollins and Triple H at WrestleMania 32. And as I'm saying this to thousands of listeners around the world, that is a crazy prediction, but I can picture it. Seth Rollins and Triple H going one-on-one. Call me crazy, I don't care. But that is my prediction. I can also see, obviously, seen in wrestling media, Sting going head-to-head against The Undertaker. That's the prediction that everyone thinks. I can actually see that happen. Undertaker, I don't know if he's ready for one more shot, but that would be really cool to see. Hall of Fame, I would like to see The Rock inducted. That would be kind of cool. I don't know if it's too early yet, but The Rock to be inducted to the Hall of Fame. And that's pretty much for now the only guy. There's so many guys. Right? There's so many legends, great legends of our wrestling business. So, but right now the only one I could think of getting inducted is The Rock. And then the matches would be Seth Rollins versus Triple H and Sting versus The Undertaker.
Okay. Nate, fire away, buddy. I know you got quite an opinion to share, man. Go for it.
All right. Of course, we're going Sting and Taker as one of the big matches. I'm going to go Brock and Rock, even though they teased Triple H and Rock for next year. I still think Brock and Rock is the bigger match and the match that'll get the most people into that stadium out there in Dallas. And then your main event, this is, if they keep all three guys strong and continue building, I think this could be a great main event, and it would be a three-way for the WWE title, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, and Roman Reigns.
People have been wanting to see that, and predicting that can definitely headline a WrestleMania. That's an interesting take. I would love to see how they build it up if they end up doing that.
You do make a good point on Triple H and The Rock. So that's another potential thing. They have been teasing it, but remember, this is a long time from now, so we could still see a Triple H and Seth Rollins thing, or we could see Triple H and Rock. That's probably what's going to happen, but I could picture a Triple H and Seth Rollins, because if you guys are wrestling fans, these big factions don't last forever. You know what I mean?
No, they don't.
Yeah, I think
maybe next year there's going to be a big feud between Triple H and Seth Rollins, because Triple H can say, I've turned you into the star you are today, and that feud can go from there.
Yeah, that Rollins babyface turn is going to be pretty big. Whenever he does make it, I think Rollins is going to make for a good babyface. So that wouldn't be too far out of the question for me to see Triple H and Rollins. But I still would love to see the Shield in that WrestleMania moment. In terms of Hall of Fame, I think this could be a huge class. I think it's still too early for The Rock. But I will say you've got star power right at your fingertips, because I think you can go in with Sting, with Taker, and the Freebird. And anyone else was just gravy after that.
Love it. Those are good choices too, considering Taker he's from Texas, and of course you can't, obviously the Von Erich family are in there, and how could the Freebirds? Come on, P.S. Hayes, it's his time, man. You got to come in there with that colorful outfit that he's going to wear, and he's going to wear a colorful one.
How great would it be, Felix, if we got, and I know Von Erich Nation listens to Pipebomb Radio, but if we got the Freebirds inducted by Kevin Von Erich, that would be awesome.
And it's a funny thing you should say that, because on the previous interviews that we've conducted with Kevin over the last couple of years, he has not denied the opportunity. If the WWE had asked him, he would do it. He's still very good friends with Michael, and considering Michael inducted him and his family, I think that would be a nice little return the favor kind of thing, if you will. And I am looking, I'm let it be known now, as I did with the other idea of the panel of that we were going to have coming up soon. I am looking to bring back Kevin during the holiday season. I almost want to make it like a yearly thing, like a tradition during the holidays, to bring in the Von Erichs, because they're always fun to talk to. Kevin, he's an amazing man. He's an amazing person to talk to, and he is just let's just say he's a great guest to have on. Now, I can't say that's not true about some other guests, like, for instance, one of our former co-hosts' favorite, and one of mine as well, would have been Blackjack Mulligan, who we've had on several times. But the man is just incredible guy. So full of so many stories. Him and Blackjack Lanza and Bobby Heenan getting into mischief and just having fun. But definitely looking to bring Kevin in during the holiday season for another fun-filled interview with us, and I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind doing that. But those are great choices. As far as what you were saying, Jordan, I don't think it's too soon for The Rock, and here's why. If they're going to give an induction, they've done a lot of the inductions that are too soon. And not saying that Rock doesn't deserve it. I believe he does deserve it. Whether it be in Texas, I don't know if that'll be the right place. I think if they go back to Florida or even come back to LA again, that might be where it might happen. I could be wrong. As far as the main events go, I have to echo again, Taker, Sting. I like the idea of a teacher versus student that was talked about, of course, Seth versus Triple H, or even the idea of the Shield main eventing. It can happen because they're building the three of them up so incredible right now. Although people still kind of knock Roman, he's an incredible competitor. He may not be the best on the mic, but you know what? A lot of people that are great competitors. Look at Brock. That dude, he is an incredible competitor, but couldn't talk to save his life, which is why they gave him Heyman. You know. And now,
go ahead.
You know, as far as it goes with the three main events, like I said, Taker, Sting, one of those two have to go with that I just mentioned. I'm also seeing, since we don't have Punk anymore, I see Austin versus Cena. I see that happening because they've talked about a match between the two of them, and it's more of a kind of a my generation versus yours, kind of like what they did with Hogan and Rock. I could see it happening because you know what, Cena is already hated, but he's loved at the same time. Whereas Steve Austin, he's just globally loved. You can't ever not love the guy. You know, Cena's hated and loved, but Austin is just loved. Period.
And Austin would be the biggest baby face ever in Cowboy Stadium. Like that's a good match right there, Felix.
Definitely. As far as everything else goes here, I want to see what you guys think as far as Nate, because you posed this question to Jordan, I got to pose it to you. You've had the opportunity, to speak to the man himself, the best there is, best there was, best there ever will be, Bret the Hitman Hart. That was an incredible thing for the show, for all of us, really. You got to speak to Kevin. Who would be your ideal person to want to see come on the show and be interviewed by the three of us?
Yeah, talking to Bret Hart obviously was a big thrill for me. Kevin Von Erich, and not only Kevin, but also Ross and Marshall. That was really cool, being a longtime fan of World Class. But in terms of guys that, would be high on my list of people that I want to talk to, of course, there's Booker T, who's one of my all-time favorites. Another one would probably be Ron Simmons, because just what he had to go through, back in WCW, and I'm sure he's got some amazing stories about the process of becoming the first black world heavyweight champion. And then finally, the other person that would be high on my list is maybe my favorite wrestler of all time, and that is the man called Sting, Felix.
I should have known that one at least. I should have known that one. But I like the idea of Ron Simmons, and I was waiting for somebody to echo the words "damn." I was waiting for it. Nobody said it. That's okay though.
Damn.
But great choices. Booker is not an impossible contact because I've spoken to him a few times, and we had him on. I had him on last summer before we brought Nate into the picture last year. Austin was out of town and unfortunately was not able to make it. I brought him on. Incredible guy, incredible interview, and I think I laughed the entire time. Booker, when he's on, he's incredible. It's not an impossible one, and it's something that I'm going to keep trying to do, try to see if we can make it happen. Ron Simmons, I don't see it being an impossible task for Ron, because I know he still does bookings from time to time, wrestling and non-wrestling related. I was not sure if he does too many interviews, because I know that a lot of the old school guys, they kind of frown upon him, only because a lot of times, I'll give you an example. We interviewed Kong last year, Awesome Kong. Do you remember that, Nate?
Yep.
And I seen from her manager posting something about, if you're going to come on and bring on a star, at least know who she is, at least know a little bit about her background. And a lot of the old school stars, they'll get interviewed by people who have that just picked up a mic and said, look, I'm going to interview somebody. I'm an interviewer. I work with the wrestling media. All right. And don't have a clue what the hell they're doing. And it makes it look bad on people who actually try to build up some kind of credibility as trying to be well, I guess you could call it, as Jordan referred to it as, working in the wrestling media, And that's what kills it, because I've tried to bring on guys, and they kind of frown upon it for that reason. I got burned the last time. I don't think I want to do it right now. I'm not doing interviews, not a big fan. We'll see where it goes. June is still a very big, we got some things big coming up, and Nate and I have talked about it. Big things coming, and I definitely look forward to expressing that more as we get closer to the end of this month, expressing and letting you guys know who it is. He's coming from a wrestling dynasty, a big one of the big wrestling families. Won't say who. But he's coming to the show June the 2nd.
Tell me it's PN News, Felix.
What's that?
I said, tell me it's PN News, Felix.
Damn. You let the cat out of the bag, man. He was the original rapper to the ring, but he was... Damn. But, yes, that one, big name coming to the show June the 2nd. As we start to wind it down here, I got a couple more questions I'm going to go for Jordan here. And then I'm going to pose them over to you, Nate, because obviously we do like to try to promote each other's work and so forth. Nate, first off, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to ask you, of course, what's going on this Wednesday night with you and your co-host, who was he was going to try to join us, but he didn't make it this time, Marcus. What's going on with you guys Wednesday night?
Yeah, Marcus Vanderberg, who works for Yahoo. Unfortunately, he was covering the NBA playoffs tonight, so shout out to Marcus. But you can hear Marcus and I talk about sports every week on the Kings of Sport. Check us out on iTunes and Stitcher. You can find us on Twitter, KOS_POD, CosPod on Twitter, and also Facebook.com/The Kings of Sport. Felix has been on the show. We may be talking to some other pro wrestlers here in the future. But, we were always talking about sports and pop culture and just having a silly time. So if you're into sports and you're into wrestling and pop culture, check out the Kings of Sport.
All right. And they're all over in social media, as he mentioned, as he's always mentioned. Jordan, you work with AngryMarks. You've worked with VOC Nation. You've interviewed some big names. Now, what you guys got coming up on your guys' shows? I believe you got a show Wednesday, and I believe one on Thursday, too, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right?
Indeed we do. Tomorrow on VOCNation.com, we have WCW Retro. Me and the Stro, alongside Derek McDonald, discuss the classic WCW days, the good old days in wrestling. That is Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern on VOCNation.com. Click the Listen Live button at that time, 9 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, which is tomorrow, and click Listen Live tomorrow, and you can listen in. It's a great show. We discuss WCW Nitro and all the great moments in WCW wrestling. VOC Nation, of course, is the new site I am with. It has an extremely huge following, and it is a big break for me, and I'm very excited. AngryMarks.com, a lot of stuff going on with them. Thursday is Thursday Night AMP, as we interview new Global Force Wrestling star Jamin Olivencia, and he's a former OVW heavyweight champion. It's going to be great to have him on the show. AngryMarks has done a lot for me. I thank them for everything, and it's going to be another good show on Thursday. And, of course, very important, follow me on Twitter at Jordan J. Garber. All
right. And as far as Thursday night goes for the Pipebomb Radio Network, Nacho Mama's radio show with Sir Mo and Oscar and Dreamy Mimi, they continue on with their Independent Wrestling Month as they bring in two great trainers, two great names, Danny Cage from the Monster Factory and Luke Hawks from Wildcat Wrestling. We'll be joining them to talk about the wrestling business as they've talked about different avenues about how to make it into the wrestling business, how to make it successfully, And looking at these guys, men on a mission, being from that new generation era, they definitely have their opinions. Oscar and Sir Mo, when they go with their bantering back and forth, Mimi and I just sit back and crack up. Nate, you can attest to this. You've been on the show. And I think it's going to be great because it's always good to get an idea of, from different people, because I know they're going to bring on Sean Stasiak the next week to close out the month of May and Independent Wrestling Month. But Not Your Mama's Radio Show this Thursday night at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. I believe it's 7 p.m. Central. Get those time zones down sooner or later, Nate.
One of these days.
As far as everything goes, yeah, tell me about it. That and the phone lines here on Blog Talk Radio. Gotta love it. But as far as everything goes, stay tuned on our social media. We have our website, pipebombradio.net, and it gives you access to basically everything from our show to Not Your Mama's Radio Show to even old episodes of the Pro Wrestling Historical Society History of Professional Wrestling show. We have our social media, which is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube. We had Daily Motion, Stitcher. So as I always say, I had to reiterate these words because it was true by our former co-host. If you can't find us anywhere, you're not looking hard enough, and you're lying. We're pretty much everywhere you can possibly think of.
And with you guys can even get your own Pipe Bomb Radio T-shirt.
Oh, you know it. You know it.
And
definitely.
That will be in my future, in my hands, a Pipe Bomb Radio T-shirt, as I am glad to be a part of it. Check out the shop as well. The shop looks really cool, so awesome stuff.
We got to give props to our former co-host, Austin. The creativity that young man has. He and I have had our differences, but you know what? That kid has got a great creative mind. I give him the credit for creating the designs for the shop, but I do have to give credit to Chad Engel, who created the caricatures you see, whether it be myself and Austin and Nate, or myself and Nate, as our good friend Elio, Two Ends Canella, has been our art designer so far. We are still looking for a graphic artist to help with the promotional pictures for each show each week. So if any of you guys know anybody listening tonight, if you know anybody that is a good graphic designer and is willing to help out, definitely message us on Facebook or reach out to us at pipebombradioshow@hotmail.com and tell me a little bit about your background, and we'll see about maybe setting you up with something. Nate, I got to ask your opinion. How did you feel like today's shows went? Do you feel like we hit a lot of great topics? Did we feel like we forgot something? Do we think maybe we should throw in a little old school flavor to it before we close out the night? Maybe talk about an old school moment that stood out to us in our young lives or even now as adults? Love to hear maybe a moment that stood out to you, maybe a classic old school moment.
Yeah, I think today was a nice little off-the-cuff show. We like to do this every now and then. A solid debut by Jordan. He gave a good accounting of himself, so I'm interested to hear more from this young man in the future. But I'll pose you a question, Felix, because I was having this discussion with a friend the other day, and they were like,
please go ahead.
What was, because if you look back to the Attitude Era, to the Monday Night Wars, those shows were all about moments. Those shows were all about stuff that would get you talking at work or at school the next day. So what was your favorite moment from WCW and also your favorite moment from WWF at the time, now WWE, during that Monday Night War Attitude Era time?
Well, there are so many to choose from, but some that stood out to me, I'll even go back even a few years earlier than that, too, and talk about one moment that stood out to me. But during the Monday Night Wars, I would have to go with the formation of the NWO, because it was something when I watched on television, to see the impact of the good All-American hero that Hogan was, to turn heel. That was something you had never seen. And the Internet couldn't kill it for you like they kill it for you now. I'm sorry, the Internet killed wrestling to a point, as far as the lack of surprise, the lack of, the element of surprise, if you will. It's not there anymore. You don't know back then you never knew who was going to show up where. Nobody predicted Lex Luger would show up on Nitro. Nobody thought that we would see DiBiase and all them. But moments that stood out to me, definitely first off would have to be the turn of Hogan and the formation of the NWO. WWE obviously coming back with the Attitude Era. But as far as that, I was a fan of the ministry. I liked where it was going. I didn't like where it ended with the corporate ministry. I was always a big fan of Shane O'Mac, Shane McMahon. That kid, that guy, I swear, he had so much ability to do so much more. He was willing to put it all on the line. And it's just like a lot of the guys said during that era, they had the freedom to really create their own characters. And there were so many storylines going on at once. It's hard to keep track. The tag team division, the intercontinental division, the crazy division. It was that being a hardcore title with Hardcore Holly and Hardcore and Crash Holly. May you rest in peace. That whole 24/7 thing was awesome. I'll go back even one a little further. One of the craziest moments, and I just seen this on Facebook. I want to say a few days ago, was 1991. Now, I'm not sure, Jordan, if you might have seen this. I'm pretty sure by now you have, because it's that out there now. But it was shortly before Survivor Series 1991. Macho Man was trying to get reinstated, gets attacked by Jake the Snake Roberts, gets the Cobra. The Cobra bites him. And to see this of all shows, Superstars, on a Saturday, or was it Sunday morning? I believe it was.
Sunday morning, yep.
I believe it was a Sunday, yes. And and the crowd reaction, oh my God, it took the breath out of everybody. They were gasping because they couldn't believe what they were seeing. 1991, you don't see things like that happen, hardly at all. And to see a snake, come out of a bag and bite a human being, and then Liz coming out there, she added so much more to that whole segment with her shrieks of terror because she's seeing her husband attacked by a snake. And then Roddy, I love Roddy to death. Piper was awesome, coming in there and slapping the hell out of the people that were trying to get Randy to calm down and get on the gurney and get him the hell out of there. But that whole segment it was one of the most real segments I had ever seen up to that point. And I was like, my goodness, could it have been something that could have done in the Attitude Era? Oh God, I think they would have pushed it even further than that. They probably would have had a snake swallow somebody whole for all we know. But that's how crazy things would have gotten in the Attitude Era. But that one in 91 stuck out to me. It still sticks out to me even to this day as one of the most intense moments I had ever seen on WWE television.
I remember, like I said, I watch a lot of wrestling tapes. Sometimes guys can call me a geek, call me a wrestling nerd, but I say that's a good thing. But moments that revolutionized wrestling would be WrestleMania 3, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, we all know that, as well as Roddy Piper's Pit, and so many memorable episodes. But when he attacked Jimmy Snuka with the coconut, that was a moment in wrestling that just didn't reach the wrestling headlines. It reached the news headlines. That was a pretty cool moment for me to watch on tape as a kid.
All right.
And those are all good moments. I've got a moment for you, though, Brother Felix, that it's not as important as Hogan and Andre, or as important as the formation of the NWO, but it's always been one of my favorites. Do you remember the Nitro in, I believe it was Greensboro, where the Horsemen came back?
Yes.
And Ric Flair's cutting that promo, and Bischoff comes out to fire him. He's like, fire me! I'm already fired. I gotta say what I gotta say. And Orange got the tears in his eyes. Like that's wrestling right there. Like they're making you feel something. And I've always loved that promo. Flair at his best is, you can say what you want to say about The Rock or Piper or Savage, who are all great talkers, but to me, Flair at his best is always going to be one of my favorite people on the mic.
Oh, no doubt. That one, that actually allowed WCW to actually win the ratings war for even one night when they announced the reformation and Flair returning to Nitro, because WWE was whooping their butt at that time. And when they announced Flair was coming back, and of all places, Greensboro, that's Flair country. So you knew that was going to be huge. Even when they did the tribute for Flair in WWE years later, I think it was at Greensboro they did it. I'm pretty sure it was. They did it back in 2003 after Raw. When Flair had he'd lost a lot of confidence in himself, and I mean, the man still had it at 50-plus years of age, and even now at 65, that man has more energy than people our age, Nate, or even for that matter, people your age, Jordan. I mean, that guy has got so much energy for being over 60, nearly 70 years old. It just amazes me even now.
Oh, yeah, indeed.
But great moments for sure. A lot of great old school moments. So many you can't just talk about them all in one show because we'd need several more hours. But a lot of great things coming up in the future for Pipebomb Radio. As I mentioned, surprises in store. We saw the debut here of Jordan. We look forward to working with him in the future for sure. Hopefully you had a great time here tonight, Jordan. I will be talking to you, of course, after the show, and of course I will be talking to you, Nate, as well. Any final words for you guys tonight before we go ahead and call it a night?
Thank you guys for the support. Everyone listening, Jordan Garber continues to get his name out there day by day, and it's good to continue to get involved with different shows. Pipebomb Radio, you guys were awesome. I love working with you guys, and I can't wait to work with you guys again soon. And, a lot of coming up for me, so just stay tuned. Follow me on Twitter at Jordan J. Garber, like I said, and a lot is coming my way.
Awesome. How about you, Nate? Any final words?
Well, yeah, and I'll piggyback off of what Jordan said and kind of tie into what you were saying earlier in terms of, there's a lot of shows out there that are pretty much just all about getting in the headlines, all about digging up dirt, all about being the most sensational, being the most shocking show out there, and that's not what we do. That's not what Jordan does. That's not what, shows like our friends over at Live Audio Wrestling. That's not what those guys do. So there's a lot of great wrestling journalism and wrestling media and wrestling podcasts out there, and to any wrestler, promoter, trainer out there that may be hesitant because they've had a bad experience on one of those other shows, don't let one bad apple spoil a whole bunch, because the truth is, man, there's a lot of people that loved watching you guys growing up and really appreciated the work that you put in, and they would love to hear from you today, whether it's on Pipebomb or whether it's on any other show out there. So, we got a phone, we got email. Let us know that you want to come on, and we'll bring you on and put you out there for the people.
There you go. I don't think I could have echoed those words any better. And on that note, on behalf of Nate Milton and myself, Felix, and, of course, our newest addition here, Jordan Garber, we're going to go ahead and close for Pipebomb Radio Off the Cuff episode tonight. Like I said, stay tuned. In the next couple of days, you'll be updated on who will be joining us next Tuesday night. We're still finalizing the next week's guest. But we'll go ahead and call it a close. Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great night. Talking to you boys later. Have a great night, guys.
Have a good night.